Welcome to Crafty Beach. I have some fun fall projects for you today. But first, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the bell if you'd like to be notified when I post new videos, and I always appreciate a thumbs up or a comment. Okay, today I was thinking blue buffalo check, burlap. That was the vibe I was going for. And so the first thing I want to do is remake this sign. This is one of those little hanging signs from the Dollar Tree. I liked it because it had the buffalo check on the outside, but I didn't necessarily like the way they had it decorated. So I am just taking the ribbon off the back and any staples that were in there so that I can DIY it. I got some of these pumpkins, and I got some of these burlap bags from the Dollar Tree. So they did like a sunflower and glitter theme, and I kind of want to do like a burlap blue fall theme. And so I thought I picked up a couple of these burlap bags because that's a great source of a little larger size burlap. And I like the printed sides too. I can use those for another project, but I'm just going to use the backs for these because I just want some plain burlap. And I'm just kind of measuring how big that center block is on these little signs. And it looks like I can get about 2 out of one of the backs there. So I'm just kind of folding that over and cutting that. Now, when I do work with burlap, I like to pull out like maybe a strand on the end to make it look a little bit frayed. And I do that on all of these. So I need 3, one for each one of those little buffalo check signs. And I am just trimming them to size. Now I noticed that you could see the glitter and the sunflowers through the burlap. So I do go in here and paint those in just a second. And I've got those all 3 cut out and ready to go. So to cover that up, I'm just going to tape off the buffalo check part because I don't want to mess that part up. So just using some painter's tape, you can get that at the Dollar Tree as well, and taping all 3 of those. And I'm just going to use ivory chalk paint to cover that up. You can use whatever you want. You could even use maybe even like contact paper or something, just so that that doesn't show through on the burlap. So those are ready to go. I'm just going to do 1 coat just to cover all that up. I really don't like the glitter that they put on their signs. And so anytime I can cover that up or hide it, I do. And I'm not even bothering sanding it because I don't want to get glitter everywhere. I'm just going to kind of trap it under this paint. And it doesn't really matter what this looks like. You're not going to be able to see this. It's just kind of a background. So 1 coat is all it's going to take on that. And while those are drying, I'm going to start on my pumpkins. So these are little pumpkin ornaments from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to need 3 for this project. Just filling in that little hole at the top of the ornament with a little bit of spackle from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to paint them 3 different colors. So the first one I'm going to do in this beautiful pumpkin color. This is chalk paint by Waverly from Walmart. I love that color of orange. This one I'm going to do in that same ivory that I did on the background. And it's going to be like my white pumpkin. And my third one I'm going to do in agave. And that's also chalk paint by Waverly. And I love these 3 colors together. I think they go together really nicely. I love pulling blue into all my seasonal decor. I think it makes it look very coastal. And I love the contrast with the blue, white, and orange. So I thought I would make these little pumpkins to put on the front of the burlap on that sign. And I'm going to distress the blue one with the ivory with my little chunky brush. And I'm kind of going, you know, in the lines where they would be on the pumpkin. You can kind of see the indentations on the top and kind of weathering all over. And I also do it on the pumpkin colored one, orange. And then I follow that up with a baby wipe to wipe off any excess and just to make those look beachy and weathered and coastal. I love that. Now on the ivory one, I can't distress it with ivory, so I'm going to distress it with a little Antique Wax by Waverly and follow that with a baby wipe and do the same thing. Just make that look a little bit more my taste. All right, those pumpkins are ready to go. I think these signs are about dry, and so we can start taking off our painter's tape and getting these ready to add the burlap. When I was thinking about, I wanted to do a couple of Buffalo Check projects. I have 5 of them here today, but then I wanted him to look coastal. So I thought if I brought in the burlap and the blue, it would give me a whole different vibe for fall. So I'm just going to attach the burlap to my little squares using just a little bit of hot glue. And I'm going to kind of do it just in the center there because I know the pumpkin will cover that up and you won't be able to see it. And that should definitely keep that on my little square. And I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to hot glue on our first pumpkin. And there is our orange one. Now I am going to reattach these together kind of like they were before, where it's a vertical hanging sign once I get them all reassembled. So burlap on the second one, then I'm going to glue on the next pumpkin, kind of trimming it, making sure my buffalo check is showing, pulling out that first string to make it look just a little frayed. And I'm going to hot glue on my blue one. And I'm just going to kind of alternate these orange, white, blue. And I think they'll look pretty cute together. And here's our last one. Same thing. Just making sure it fits and that it's kind of evenly frayed. And just a little bit of hot glue on both of those. Now, all I need to do is put this thing back together. So to kind of make it look even, I am going to measure in between the squares to make sure that I get them equal distance. And since I'm kind of going with that burlap theme, I'm going to use some of this burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree just to reattach those signs together. And I could have left the original brown ribbon on there, but I wanted to kind of take it up a notch, and they're kind of easier to work with when they're not all attached together. And I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue on the back of those signs. They're super light, so this should definitely hold. I try not to use the staple gun on the Dollar Tree signs because they're thin, and a lot of times it will go through and mess up the other side. So once I have all 3 signs hot glued to my burlap ribbon, all I have left to do is make a little hanger. So I'm just using a little bit of twine from the Dollar Tree and some hot glue. And I am just going to make a little hanger here for the top. Nothing fancy, just something simple. And I like to use a little bit of something to glue on top of that to make that a little bit more secure. So I'm just going to use a little scrap piece of that burlap ribbon and hot glue that on to attach my hanger to the back of my sign. And then the only thing I have left to do on this project is I thought I would decorate it up a little bit. You can still kind of see where those holes were from the ornaments. And so I thought I could just make 3 very simple little tiny bows with that jute twine. Super sweet. And just attach those to the stem of our pumpkins. That will cover that up, give a little bit more detail, and it goes with that brown burlap theme. And this is our first project. I hope you guys like this. I really like the blue and the buffalo check. I think it is a fun idea for fall. And I'm just attaching those all with just a little bit of hot glue. Okay, that's it on project number 1. Now, next up, I found this great pumpkin at Dollar Tree, and it is Buffalo Check, perfect. And I wanted to cover up that give thanks on there. So I thought I would use one of these little trucks from these little craft kits they have at the dollar spot at Target right now. And it's got pumpkins in the back, and I'm just going to use that truck. So all I'm doing here is removing that little paper leaf thing that was on this and the little burlap bow. And I'm just going to secure that down. It was loose a little bit. Now, this pumpkin is available at Dollar Tree right now. It's got a little bit of burlap on the background. Then it's got like a buffalo check. It says give thanks on it, but it's not real great the way that that's written on there. It's hard to read, and it has some leaves still on there. So the thing I didn't like is it's kind of covered in glitter all over, but a very fine glitter. It's not a lot, but I still didn't want glitter on this project. So I thought I would use this matte Mod Podge, just go over the surface of all the fabric that's on there to try to take that down so you can't see it. And this actually worked really well. You can't even tell there was glitter on there because there wasn't a lot. The give thanks definitely had glitter, and I'm going to cover that up hopefully with that little truck. And that works for covering up that. I really like the burlap they had on there and the buffalo check. It totally goes with the theme that I'm going with today. And that little truck, those are little just craft kits from Target Dollar Spot. It has a sign. It's got like some pieces in there to decorate. They have all different ones for fall. I think they're $3 for all of it. But all I wanted out of it today was just that little truck. It's super cute. Now, to cover up the give thanks, it's a little bit larger than my truck, and I want to tie in some more burlap. So I'm just using some of this burlap ribbon. This was in with the fall section, flowers and stuff like that at Dollar Tree. And one wasn't quite thick enough to cover the give thanks, so I'm just going to do two. And I'm just going to do it like just a banner across, not real obvious. But something to cover up that give thanks and to give a little bit of background to our little blue truck I'm going to make there with the pumpkins in it. So I'm just attaching that to the buffalo check with a little bit of hot glue, and then I'm going to glue on a second layer of it so that you can't see through it, and that will disguise that give thanks and kind of make it look like a blank slate. Now, this is like, for a shelf. It's got the little stand on the bottom, and it's already stained and everything. It's super cute, so I'm just going to leave that as is. And I'm just kind of seeing how I want my little truck to be on there. And, of course, I want to bring in blue, so I'm using some of that agave chalk paint. But first, I'm going to use a little bit of painter's tape, and I am going to tape off my pumpkins because I don't want those to be blue. But I'm going to do the rest of the truck in blue. And just using a foam brush and some of that agave blue chalk paint, and I'm going to go all over. I'm not going to worry about the edges or anything. I don't think you're really going to be able to see it. And just going all over. It's kind of got like an etched surface, so I wasn't real concerned with going into that. When I go to distress it, that will definitely bring out the little features on there a little bit more. And just giving it a dry with my heat gun. I'm going to take off my painter's tape, and it's time to paint my pumpkins. I'm going to use that same pumpkin color chalk paint by Waverly, and these are tiny, so I'm going to have to go in with a little brush to do a little bit of detail because I don't want to tape off that blue paint. It might be a little bit wet still, and I'm just going to do all of those just orange. Super simple to work with. I really like these craft kits at Target Dollar Spot. They're super cute, and they're like a thick wood. Now for my tires, I'm just going to kind of go in here with my black paint pen and color in a tire. I thought about leaving it blue, but I thought it would look kind of funny for the truck to have blue wheels. So I thought I would just go in and try my best to color a circle in there and leave like the hubcap part blue. And I'm not worried about it being super perfect. Because I'm going to distress it here in a sec, and that will kind of cover up any errors I have in trying to make a perfect circle. And I'm going to dry that paint there with my heat gun. And then I decided I wanted a little bit less black here, right around like the wheel wells. So I went in with just this is like ivory color to kind of lighten that up a little bit because it looked a little weird there. And then here's my ivory chalk paint and my chunky brush from the Dollar Tree, and I am gonna just weather my little truck and make him look beachy, coastal, farmhouse, all over, everywhere, the edges. It brings out the little detail, and then follow that up with just a baby white. And definitely get the edges. And this definitely took my little truck up a notch. I'm focused kind of on the truck area there, but I do go ahead and distress my little pumpkins there too. And a little truck is ready to go. So all I'm going to need to do is attach this to my pumpkin with a little bit of hot glue. And then I'm going to need to replace those leaves that I took off at the bottom. I didn't think they were very cute, but I found these adorable stickers at Dollar Tree, and I'm going to use the 3 different colors of pumpkin. Totally matches my blue and orange, and use that there. I just stick that on there, but it does come off because that's fabric. So I end up hot gluing that down. So if you do put something there, you probably want to hot glue it. Now for my stem, I thought I'd use some of this wire jute to kind of make some little twisty tendrils. And so I'm gonna just cut some of that off. And then I just have a random, I don't know, lavender maybe plant left over from summer, spring or summer projects. And I just want a couple of random leaves. Doesn't matter what they are. I kind of liked this color and this size. And I'm just gonna use that wired jute to tie some leaves on. But I'm going to leave lots of extra so that I can make some of those little twisty tendrils for the top of my pumpkin. It's going to bring in a little bit more of that brown burlap color and give a little bit more fun texture. I'm just rolling it around an ink pen. Now, I did notice it was coming off the wire. They're not on the wire like really good on this stuff from the Dollar Tree. And sometimes it helps if you twist it first, which I didn't. So that one was kind of long, so I did trim it and twist it more so that it kind of stays on the wire more and you can see the wire less. Because I wasn't really going for a wire, I kind of wanted it to look like a brown tendril. So just retwisting it there after I get it better attached. And I just want a little bit of fun there up there at the top of my stem. Now, this project was really kind of cute. They had these in several different color schemes. These little pumpkins, if you see them at your Dollar Tree, definitely pick them up. They are really cute. But I think it definitely looks better than it did before with the give thanks. They could have decorated that part a little bit better, but that's okay. It gave me a fun background to do my own thing with the little blue truck. And we got the burlap, we got the buffalo check, we got the blue. And this project is ready to go. Okay, up next, I picked up a couple signs at Dollar Tree. This one is just a square one that says thankful, grateful, blessed. And they're making the paper really loose on these things. I do notice that when I do pull the paper off like this and paint it, it does wrinkle a bit. But I think it's going to be okay because I am going to have it mostly covered with that pumpkin. Now, I thought the top and the bottom will be visible, so I'm just going to use some of that burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and I'm only going to cover the top and the bottom because that's the only parts of the sign that are going to be visible. I'm not going to paint this one because you're not going to be able to see it because of the burlap. So I'm just attaching that burlap with a little bit of hot glue, and I am going to do that on the top and the bottom, and that is just about the right height for what is going to be visible on the back sign, the square sign there. And I'm going to attach that monogram pumpkin to the front of my sign. I love these monogram pumpkins. They come in a couple different colors, orange with the white monogram and white with the black. And I love the monogrammed pumpkins. Like, great job, Dollar Tree. And you'll notice it's already got the buffalo check ribbon and a little leaf on the top. And I am just making sure that that is all the burlap I need and trimming that up a little bit. And we are ready to attach our pumpkin to that sign. Now, I thought I needed to take it up a notch. So instead of the tan outline, I kind of want this pumpkin to look like one of those really pretty light blue pumpkins. And so I'm using my light blue paint pen, and I'm just kind of freehanding where they already had their lines. That made it super easy. This beautiful like light blue mint green color. Everywhere they have one of those lines. I'm going to leave the monogram in black. I think that looks cute. But I definitely don't want to leave this white. I thought the white would be a good base to try to make this a pretty blue pumpkin. So just going over all those lines. And I was trying to decide how blue I wanted to make it. And I was like, I could just do like a blue outline like this. I could paint it blue, but then I would have to worry about that monogram. But I end up just kind of distressing it to make it blue. And I really like how that turns out. So I'm just making sure my paint pen part is dry. Now this leaf was really on there. So I'm trying to pry that little metal leaf off. That I could probably use that for another project, but I don't really like it on this one. And then I'm trying to decide what to do with my stem part there at the top. So I have a couple more of those leaves left over from a plant, just anything. And I went ahead and took the bow off so that I can start working on my stem. I decided I wanted to wrap it with some of this twine from the Dollar Tree. That kind of goes with that brown burlap color. Gives me a coastal feel and is super easy. I tied through the little ring at the top to cover that up. And just wrapped around and around and around until I covered up all of the brown paint on the top of the pumpkin. Once I get it good and covered, it fell off a little bit there on the top, and I'm just trying to slide that back on. I'm going to trim that and just attach that to the back with a little bit of hot glue to secure that. And a little hot glue on the top so that it does not come off again. And I'm just going to use a little bit of flame there to burn off any little loose fibers on my jute twine. Now I decided I want to distress it, and so I first go in and distress it with the ivory. I kind of want it to look like ivory and blue, not that super white color. And I wanted my monogram to be kind of distressed too. So I'm just going in with that ivory chalk paint, my chunky brush, a baby wipe, and giving it a light distress all over. And this pumpkin kind of evolved painting wise. I just kind of kept working on it until I got it the way that I liked it. I'm also distressing those little blue lines that I put on there as well. And I'm going to attach my leaves there to the top of my stem with just a little bit of hot glue. And I'm just going to reattach that buffalo check bow. There was really nothing wrong with it. It was kind of ready to go, and it matched my theme, and I'm just going to reattach that with a little bit of hot glue. I didn't really like that metal leaf with this project, so I'm not going to use that, but I'm going to go ahead and attach this to my sign with a combination of hot glue and wood glue. And there is our pumpkin sign. I'm looking at it and I'm trying to decide if I love it or not. And that's when I decide I want it more blue. So I'm using that agave blue color, chalk paint by Waverly, and a chunky brush. And I'm just kind of distressing it. I'm going with like the shape of the pumpkin, kind of like it would look more like in 3D. And giving that a light distress all over and just following that up with a baby wipe. And so the white original pumpkin is distressed with the ivory and this agave color. And it really gave me a really pretty color. Like, it looks like that really faded blue pumpkin. I really like how it turned out. Then I wanted a little bit more detail, so I'm going to use one of those little buffalo check and burlap leaves from the Dollar Tree. They come like, I think 6 in a package. And hot gluing that on to the top for a little fancy buffalo check addition. And then I also want to do some of that wire jute for a little curly tendril, and I just take some and wind it around an ink pen, and it likes to come apart, so I should have probably twisted it first. So I am gonna twist it together so that that wire is not super visible. I'm gonna go ahead and try to attach it first here to my stem by just winding it around and winding it against each other. And then I am going to re-spin it around my pen and just a little tendril touch to the top of our pumpkin sign. Okay, I got this great long sign. It's a spooky sign, and I'm just removing that little foam skull. I can reuse that for a project later. And the paper is super loose on this sign as well. And what I want to do is make a really long sign, like a horizontal sign. I thought this would be perfect. Almost all the paper came off. Good enough for the back of it. Just a little bit was glued down. And then I am just removing the twine from the back that was stapled on the back and sanding the damage that was left from that. There was a little bit of holes, and I'm just going to cover that with just a little bit of spackle and sand that off. And we have a great base to make a long sign. Now, I was thinking I want this sign to be blue, very blue, coastal, like framed with white maybe. So I'm going to go over the back of this sign with this chalk paint by Waverly and agave. And it's going to give me a great blue background for the sign. I'm going to break out my Cricut on this one and I want to make a big sign that I can hang on my wall for fall. And I want it to bring in that buffalo check, that burlap, that pretty blue color. And so I definitely wanted a blue background. And the back of these signs are super easy to paint. I don't really like Dollar Tree signs that much because they're thin, but I do beef this up with a frame that I make. So I am going to go in. I want it to look super beachy, and I'm going to distress it all over with a chunky brush and some ivory chalk paint and follow that up with a baby wipe to give me that pretty coastal blue color that I really like. Now, once I get that going, I am going to attach some leaves, some pumpkins, and some vinyl. Now, you'll see there I found some great leaves. I just used it on the previous project too. They have buffalo check pumpkins and leaves, and their burlap background is what it looks like, and then buffalo check. And so I'm trying to decide if I want to use just the white and black, or if I want to use some of the orange and black, if I wanted, how many I want to do. I ended up using 2 of the leaves and 2 of the pumpkins. And right there, I'm trying to decide 2 colors, 1 color. I end up going with the black and white. I like that. So I am just measuring how big I need my letters to be, and I am just going to go use my Cricut real quick to cut some letters. I used some of this white vinyl from the Dollar Tree, but it's super hard to weed because it has a white background. And so I am going to pull that off my mat, and I got a new toy. It's one of these Cricut bright pads, and it does help me see the white on white so I don't rip up the vinyl accidentally. And it also helps me to weed that. So this is what our sign is going to say. It's going to say, autumn leaves and pumpkins, please. I did those separately, and so, of course, the Cricut kind of put them on there however they think they'd fit best. But don't worry, I'm not going to put them on there like that. Oh my gosh, I messed up my pumpkin patch sign by putting Fresh Farm instead of Farm Fresh. And I had to redo the whole dang thing. So there it is. I've got them weeded. I've cut them out into 2 strips, and I'm going to use some of this awesome paper, transfer paper. I get that on Amazon. I will post a link below. I love that stuff. It is fantastic. and both of them should fit on there, and then I'm just going to kind of cut them apart so that I can get them on there individually and straight. I'm going to use my scraper to attach that to my paper, transfer paper, trying to like lay out my leaves where I'm going to think they're going to be, and I can go ahead and use my scraper to attach my vinyl to the sign. I thought about making a stencil and hand painting it, but I think vinyl is going to work fine on this, and it's going to make this project a little bit easier. So just lining those up and pulling off my paper transfer paper. And we have autumn leaves and pumpkins, please. I thought about hand painting this, and then I was like, oh girl, you can't hand paint that. That will look a mess. So whenever I use vinyl on wood signs, I like to sand them a little bit with a sanding block. It makes them good and down and makes them look part of the piece a little bit better and a little bit less like stickers. Now, I thought this project needed a frame, and I didn't really have anything, you know, from the Dollar Tree or cheap sitting around that I could make a nice wood frame out of. So I thought, hey, I have some of those little mini Jenga blocks from the Dollar Tree, and I can try to make a frame. Now, first I'm kind of lining it out because, of course, it was always going to be better if you can do it without cutting, but it really wasn't the right size to exactly do it without cutting. So I am going to have to cut, like, I think on most of the sides, but I'm going ahead and lining those up. And these are sitting on their side so that I can kind of have like a 3D frame that kind of sticks out from the back. It's going to make this project look way more substantial, way less cheap. It's going to make it look framed out. And so that is what I was going with. So now cuts come into play. So I kind of see how long I need my things to be. And I'm using some of my miter scissors that I picked up on Amazon. And I didn't know if this would work. I really didn't want to break out my saw. But I thought I would give it my best attempt. Now, the first one totally didn't work. But I thought, surely this is going to work. These work really good on 3D wood. So I try again, and I get way better at it. So I cut that one. It's a little jagged, but good enough for crafting. And so I just sanded it a bit, measured up my next one I needed to cut, and I got really good. You got to squeeze hard to go through these Jenga blocks, but it is definitely possible and way easier than trying to break out a saw or something. Probably safer as well. So I'm just cutting the 4 pieces that I need to finish out my sides perfectly to give me a nice frame for our wall project. And I got all 4 of those. Sometimes they cut a little crazy, so I'm just sanding them a little bit with a sanding block, but it's going to be okay. They don't have to be perfect. Now, the most time it took for this project was probably this, gluing all the little blocks together. I'm going to paint my frame, but I thought it would be easier to paint them once I get them all attached. And so what I'm doing is I'm going to glue them together into 4 sides. So I'm going to start with the easy ones first, which were the sides. And I'm just using a dot of hot glue on the ends of one of each one of those and pushing those together. Now, the long parts were way harder. I kind of laid them flat to try to line them up because I was trying to keep it as straight as I possibly could. Because I don't want it to be all wacky. Now, the problem is that my hot glue gun doesn't do like detail. It kind of gives a big blob of glue. So that took a lot of time trying to peel off the extra hot glue that came out when I tried to put those together. But I waited for it to cool off and just use a combination of my fingernail and sandpaper to try to get any of that excess glue off. And we have 4 sides for our frame. And just cleaning this one up a bit. This piece was like super long, so it was a little challenging. It fell apart a couple times, but I get it to stay together. Now I'm ready to paint these guys. So just cleaning up all my dust from that sanding that I did, and I'm going to paint these ivory. So I'm going to use some ivory chalk paint by Waverly. I thought that'd be a nice contrast against my blue sign, and it would go with the white writing that we have on our sign. And so I kind of do a coat of that ivory chalk paint on all 4 sides. 3 sides will be visible because it's going to be kind of standing up on its side like that, the top, bottom, and front. But I went ahead and did all 4 sides because I was just going to use whichever side end up looking the best. Now, if you do have hot glue that spilled out that you did not get off, but you thought you did, you will be able to see it when you paint it because it's going to look a little bumpy. So you'll kind of have to touch it up as you go. But this was definitely an inexpensive way to make a wood frame for this piece. I did think about trying to use some other things I had like laying around, like Hot Wheel tracks and stuff like that, but nothing was quite long enough. This is a really nice long sign. So once I get them painted, I'm like finding the areas where there's still a little hot glue. And when I clean that up, then I have to touch the paint up a little bit. And just sanding as I go too, because I want it to try to look like one piece of wood the best I can. I did have a little scrap wood. I didn't really have anything quite this small, but you could definitely use whatever you've got. But the frame definitely made the sign so much more special, and it made it look like very expensive. And I am touching up all those pieces until I have a good ivory coat on all of them. No bumps, no glue spots, good coverage. And we are ready to put this guy together. So I'm just going to do a little bead of hot glue along the top. Lay that down. I have my frame standing on its side and push that over to glue that to the side where the frame comes out the front there. And it's a little bit warped, but I am trying to get it as straight as I can. And I'm ready to hot glue on the bottom of my sign. And just kind of pushing as I go. That hot glue dries really fast, and I want it to be nice and secure. So I'm kind of turning it over and hot gluing any areas that aren't fully attached from the back. And trying to get that good and square. Now it's time to work on the sides of our frame. I'm going to do the same thing. Just a bead of hot glue on the side of our sign and pushing our little Jenga blocks up there to give a left side. And this sign was so big it was hard to keep this thing in frame. And I'm going to attach the 4th side of our frame. And look how cute this is. I have a sign that's similar that I bought like maybe at Bell's. And that thing was like $30, I think. And it is about the same color scheme and size. And this was a super easy DIY once I got my frame put together. I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue to attach my little Burlap and Buffalo Check leaf and pumpkin. I do one of each on each side. And it goes with the autumn leaves and pumpkins please theme that I put on there. And so fun. I love how this project turned out. And it's a nice large project, wall project to make with Dollar Tree supplies. And everything, everything came from the Dollar Tree, even my vinyl on this. And I want to make a hanger because I'm going to want to hang this on my wall. I'm just going to use one of those little sawtooth hangers that you can just hammer into the back and making sure that is centered so this will hang properly on my wall. I decide that it's not quite distressed enough. So I do go in with one of those chunky brushes and that ivory chalk paint. And I'm just going to go over everything. The little buffalo check pieces and the blue background because I want it to be a little bit more distressed. I did distress it earlier, but I didn't distress any of those pieces, and it just needed more distressing. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just kind of going over everything. I'm a little out of frame. Again, that sign was really big. And following that up with just a baby wipe. And I love how this project turned out. It is so pretty. I don't have it hung on my wall yet. I'm trying to find the perfect place to put it, but it is really one of my favorite projects. And it would have been easier if I would have done the distressing on the blue before I glued down the little pumpkins and leaves, but that's okay. I still got the job done. And I like that. That looks way more my taste, and I think that's going to work. Okay, I found this little buffalo check sign at my Dollar Tree. It's like a wedding sign or something like that. But I'm going to try to make it like a pumpkin sign, a shelf sitter. To go with this theme, I found these great decals at Dollar Tree, and I'm thinking about using this large pumpkin. It ends up being too big, and I end up using the smaller one, but I'm cutting out the big one because I think that's what I'm going to use. And I want that buffalo check background on that sign to be visible. I don't necessarily like that shape that's on there. So I thought I would just I had some of this blue cardstock just sitting around, and I thought that would be easier to use the cardstock than to paint it. But if you don't have any, you can always just tape off that little buffalo check sign from the Dollar Tree and paint like a little square center. For the sign, I want my lines to be super straight, and so I'm just kind of measuring. I want to do like maybe 2 rows of the buffalo check so that you can tell it's buffalo check. So I'm just using my little paper cutter just because I want to make sure that my cardstock is super straight. There's no way I'm going to be able to cut that straight enough with a pair of scissors. And so I kind of even it up. You'll notice on like these signs from the Dollar Tree, they're super cheap. So like that little "we are getting married" or whatever it says is definitely not on there even. It's a little off one direction. So I want my sign to be even. So I am using the pattern on there to line that up. And I am just going to use a little bit of Mod Podge to attach that cardstock to our buffalo check sign, making sure I put it on there square. And cardstock is really easy to Mod Podge. That is basically all you're doing is gluing that down. And I don't want it to look super blue and bright like that, so I'm just going to distress the paper with a little bit of that ivory chalk paint and my Chucky brush. And carefully going over that with a baby wipe because the paper didn't really like being wet. But this definitely did work, and it was super easy way to make a little blue square over the center of my sign because I wanted to bring in that blue color for this project. So once I have that on there, I want to make a border. And so I thought I would use some of this burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree. And again, I found this like with the fall flowers and stuff like that. They have it like in orange, I think green, and this brown burlap color. And I was trying to decide, do I want to do that? Do I want to use some of this skinnier burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree? But it would not cover the little white circles that were coming out the side. And so I end up using the thicker one because that's going to cover that up. And I noticed that it was a little too thick, but I'm going to try to make it work. Now, this is the other kind of burlap ribbon there. I was trying that one as well. And I even broke out like my giant roll. I really couldn't decide how I was going to pull this project together, but I end up using this one. So I'm just kind of rolling it out, seeing how long I'm going to need it, but it is way too wide. So I'm like, well, if I fold it in half, cut it like down the half like this, that would be just about the right size. And it's going to definitely look like the burlap theme that I'm going with. But again, you could see that white circle underneath of it. So I'm like, okay, well, if I stack them on top of each other like this, you wouldn't be able to see through, and it's going to give me a burlap frame. You're still going to be able to see the buffalo check background that I want. And it's going to bring in that blue buffalo check and burlap. So I am cutting out another set of those pieces for the top. And I'm just going to use some hot glue to attach the first piece of burlap. And then I am going to hot glue the second piece right on top. And that's going to make the burlap less transparent. You're not going to be able to see what's behind it. And that worked out perfectly. I just couldn't find a burlap that was like the right size, because I definitely didn't want to cover up that buffalo check. That was one of my favorite parts of this sign. So I'm going to do the same thing here on the other side. Put my half a piece of burlap down with just a little bit of hot glue. Trying to trim it to make it a little bit even with the other side, and hot gluing the second piece on top of that. So now I just have the other two sides there that I need to cut the burlap for, and I will have a frame. Now my phone did die, so all you missed was me gluing those two sides down and determining that that pumpkin I had picked out was way too big. So I used a smaller one, and it was a sticker, and so I just stuck that on my paper. Easy peasy. Now you can still see one side of the white circle sticking out, and so I thought I would make that the top, and I would just cover it with some of these pretty fall leaves from one of these little sprigs from the Dollar Tree. And I chose two that were a color scheme that I thought would go pretty with that pumpkin and the burlap. And I am just attaching that to the top of our piece with just a little bit of hot glue. One going to the left and one going to the right. And this project was super easy to put together. It was just trying to work with the pattern that was already on there. I wanted to keep the buffalo check, but I wanted to make it a little bit more special and take it up a notch for fall. I'm trying to decide, I wanted one more thing to put on the top, and so I thought some of this raffia would be cute. So I hate working with this stuff, but I'm giving it my best. I pulled out just some, trying not to make it super thick, just tying a simple raffia bow. I think that's going to look very fall, very coastal. It's going to go with the color scheme, and just trimming that up a little bit. I decide I don't like it, and so I pull out some and retie it. It's just a little bit too thick. I wanted it to be a little bit more dainty. So I like that one better, and I'm just going to attach that to my fall leaves there at the top once I get it exactly the way I want it, with just a little bit of hot glue. And we are going to have another blue burlap buffalo check project for fall to sit on my shelf. So I think it turned out pretty cute. And I think I took care of covering up all the little pieces of white that you could still see, but it left the buffalo check border, which goes around on the sides as well. Okay, it's final reveal time. Here is the little 3-piece buffalo check, burlap, and pumpkin wall hanger that we did. And we used the burlap ribbon to attach those together. I have those hanging on the side of my cabinet in my kitchen. I think they look very farmhouse, but very coastal, so the coastal farmhouse fall vibe. I think they turned out really cute. And here is our little pumpkin shelf sitter. I absolutely love this one. Good job, Dollar Tree, on making this pumpkin. So cute. I totally took it up a notch with that little blue truck from the Target dollar spot, and some pumpkins and some twine and leaves there on the top. It looks great sitting next to my little blue truck. And here is our monogrammed pumpkin. It looks this beautiful color of beachy light blue, with a burlap background, buffalo check, leaf, and bow. And I think this one turned out really cute as well, and it was super easy to make. Now here is our large autumn leaves and pumpkins please sign. I don't have it hanging on my wall yet, but you can see how big it is. It's like the whole size of my bookcase. Nice, huge sign. using all Dollar Tree supplies, so super inexpensive to put together. I love that one. I can't wait to hang it. And here is the last project, that shelf sitter we did, the buffalo check background, the burlap border, and just a pumpkin window cling, and some fall leaves and a raffia bow. And I think that looks really cute as well. What was your favorite project? Please leave below which one you like the best. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Until next time, everybody, have fun decorating for fall. Bye.